Hello, my name's Colin Haney. Welcome to another episode of my truck camper build. Last week I stated that I wanted to make a bit of a presentation on RV insulation. I didn't get my show and tell props ready for this week, so I instead want to talk a little bit about 1x2s. If you've been watching my videos, you know that that's mainly what I work with. I use 1x2s primarily to connect wood or these plywood panels. I put them in the corner and then use them to attach my panels like this. And most of the strength of my build is in the panels themselves, not the 1x2, though it does add something. But the problem I've run into is that when you go buy these 1x2s from the store, they don't always, they might come home straight, depending on the ones you pick out if you're careful, but they don't stay that way. This one could probably make a pretty good elven longbow. I don't know if you can see that there. And this is a remnant of one. Hockey stick or maybe a canine prosthesis, seeing that it's as crooked as a dog's hind leg. And as I got into my build, I started having problems just having wood that I could work with, and I feel a little bit stupid for not figuring it out sooner, but I've kind of been working against myself and thought I'd share some of what I've been learning. I have probably worked more with metal than with wood, and in a past life or a job that I had years ago, I was working with a machinist, and he was talking about forgings. And if you're not familiar with forgings, it's when you take a chunk of metal, billet, and you heat it up to a softening point, not till it's molten and dripping, but hot enough that it's softened, and then you use presses and hammers, whatever, to shape it to close to what your final dimensions need to be. And then once it's cooled down, maybe aged or treated some, then you make final cuts on the forging to get to the final shapes you need. And one of the things that this machinist explained was that as you press and shape this metal inside, you create all these internal forces that are pulling and pushing against each other, so that when you get to do the final machining where you're shaving off layers of it, well, you're also shaving off some of the internal supports. And so if you just cut it to the final dimensions you're expecting, then the final shape will sometimes flex in a way that throws it off. So you don't get what you wanted to, because the final shape bends more. And I kind of had that mindset that that's what's happening with this wood, that there's internal forces that I can't do anything about, and they're just going to have their way, like grass growing up through a piece of concrete or asphalt can lift tons of forces or tons of weight, and there's not a lot you can do about it. Well, I was watching somebody building a boat, and they were steaming some of their pieces of wood, and I got to thinking that my mental model for wood was incorrect. In a way, steaming is almost like not exactly a casting, but not exactly a forging either. Once you steam it, you can bend it and then let it harden, and as long as you put it in a form, then the form maintains the shape you want, and the wood will take on that shape within reason. And part of my problem is I've been getting these home and efficiently stacking them against the wall. Well, now I've got gravity and nothing is supporting these as they dry out. And so after watching the boat building video, I got to think, well, you know, they arrive at the store where I buy them in these bundles where they're all strapped together and essentially holding each other straight. What if, you know, I'm not going to take the time or the space to build a drying kiln or anything like that, but if I just constrained their shape while they dried out in my garage, then maybe I wouldn't get the dog's hind leg out of it. And so a few weeks ago, I set up not even that good of a box or a form, and I've been getting much more usable lumber out of that, and so I'll show you that. So there's nothing terribly fancy about it. I'm using 2x4s on the sides, and if you look down the length of them, you'll see that the 2x4s themselves aren't all that straight. But I started out with pretty much this whole cavity between the 2x4s filled with 1x2s, and then I clamped them at the ends, and then put these thinner cans on the top. And as I remove 1x2s, I replace them with these shorter pieces so that whatever's left when it's not a complete row stays supported and can't bend too much. And so far, this whole stack, I've been able to use every single one of my 1x2s, and I feel kind of dumb that I didn't think of that sooner. But if there's anyone else out there who is trying to work with this lumber the way I am, it's not high grade, it's not really intended for what I'm doing with it, but with something like this, I've been able to get much better results, and instead of dreading trying to find a 2x4 or a 1x2 that'll work, I've been able to just use these. So in my introductory video where I showed the CAD model, I explained that I reached a point in the design where I wasn't quite sure how big to make the kitchen or the bathroom or anything, and decided that I wanted to have a mock-up before I moved forward. Well, I'm finally reaching a point. The tub didn't really affect what happened above it too much, though there were some places I would have liked to have tied in a little better. But I'm finally at a point where I'm making the internal walls and doing it in a way that I can adjust them around a little bit to figure out how big to make the kitchen, the bathroom, the closets, I keep thinking of it as a breakfast nook, but it's the table, whatever. Since it's only for one and maybe two people, it's pretty custom, I guess. But you can see that I've been fabricating the wall panels, and now I'm kind of getting a feel for how things will fit out. You can see the door there. I'm actually able to stand with my head below the entry there while I'm standing on the tailgate of the truck, but once I stand up inside, then my head will be higher than the height of the door. Here, that's not going to be big enough, I decided. I wanted the walls to line up with the bulkheads underneath the floor just for structural reasons, but the black tank bulkhead aligns with the bathroom wall, which is on the other side of the aisle from the kitchen there. And after doing the mock-up and playing with it, I decided, well, ideally, structurally, it might be better to have the walls symmetric in the build directly across from each other. But here you can see that I'm putting up the second bathroom wall there, and it doesn't align directly. But you can also see I kind of put a little panel between the sink and the stove top area there. And I want at least some counter space. I plan to put a slide out cutting board type thing that will give me additional counter space when I need it. Cooking isn't a huge thing that I do, but it's nice to have enough room to do it. It just seems like wasted space during the time you're not cooking, and that's not what I spend most of my time on. So here I'm putting horizontal or diagonals inside of the wall panels to strengthen them. I will eventually put a second panel on the walls to close them up and to add additional strength, but I want to leave them open for now so that I have something to anchor to when I put drawer slides or shelves or countertops, just like you want in building a house to anchor to a stud in the wall if possible. I don't know exactly where I'm going to put everything, and so leaving it open, I can put a place to anchor to inside of the wall and then close it up. And so that's what I'm doing there. So here's the second one, just cutting those notches out so that they connect with the bridging 1x2s up at the top there. Anyway, that's about the amount of progress that I made this week. Things are starting to move a little bit faster now that the walls are going up. As you saw in the beginning of the video, I made quite a bit more progress in the upcoming week. But thanks for watching, and I'll be getting another update in a week.